This country has an ugly history in many of our lifetimes when it comes to police, particularly in the Deep South, and innocent black citizens. But today, with body cams, both protecting the officers from false allegations and citizens from mistreatment by the cops, police accountability has never been greater. But you'd never know that watching much of the mainstream media, who continue to tell us how evil police are, how racist policing is, that this is just more of the same. It's not. It's critical we have these discussions. But as I said at the outset, let's make sure we're having the right ones, which is why we are going to do just that with Blair Anderson, 27-year law enforcement vet and former chief of police for the St. Cloud, Minnesota department there from 2012 to 2022. Thanks very much for coming on the program. Appreciate it. All right, so you have, I know, thought about this stuff. You talk about this stuff a lot. What are your thoughts just broadly on everything that I just said?
Well, first, thank you for having me on, Dan, and I appreciate that you are shifting the narrative to where it is supposed to be. Unfortunately, and too often, in my opinion, we focus on things that are not substantive, and so we don't get to the core issues, which is the behavior. It doesn't matter what package a rogue police officer who displays the kind of evil that we saw in Memphis and all over the country is wrapped in. But unfortunately, that gets lost in the swirl. And so I'm grateful that you are shifting the narrative to where it should be, which is the behavior, and statistics bear this out, right? Whether it's police officers or normal citizens, there's very little violence committed against human beings from one to another that is intra-racial. In other words, heaven forbid, if you're going to be murdered, it's likely going to be by someone who looks like you.
Yeah. And so why does it always seem then that we're always talking about these incidents through the prism of race, as far as you're concerned?
Dan, I need an easier question than that. It is because we are polarized, and you mentioned it in your intro. We know that we have a sordid history when it comes to race. And in my opinion, I think by focusing on the race issue and keeping us polarized, we don't get to the core issues of why these things are happening. And again, to me, it comes back down. I'm a simple Midwestern guy, Dan. 2 and 2 is 4. It'll never be anything else. That's how I was raised. But we don't ever get to that because we focus on the racial component. And I get it as a man of color, why people of color are outraged when these kinds of things happen, particularly when, in this case, the perpetrators were all black men. But that shouldn't even be part of the conversation, in my opinion. And I'll probably get into big trouble for saying this, but I really don't care because we're dealing with behavior.
Yep. And a lot of this relates to training, right? I mean, but there's only so much training can teach you, right? I'm confident that the Memphis police officers who were involved there went through a training program, and there is no way anything that they learned would have said that what they did is okay.
Agreed. 27 years in law enforcement, Dan, and I've never been trained in these kinds of tactics. And so it's redundant. It might be corny to some people. We are talking about behavior. And in my opinion, these 5 men had no business ever being in this profession. And so it makes me wonder how arduous, how rigorous the screening process is for the Memphis Police Department. And I don't know. I've never worked there. And so I don't want to cast aspersions. But it makes me wonder because if you have a rigorous screening process, these are the kinds of things that you can ferret out before it comes to this. Nothing is foolproof, but you can more than likely, more often than not, screen those kinds of people out if you have a rigorous and an arduous process.
Yep.
Particularly with the psychological evaluation. I'm a huge proponent of that because not everyone is fit to do this job. And This job can change you if you don't have self-definition, if you don't know who you are to begin with. If you became a police officer because you were bullied in the schoolyard, you're not going to do well in this job. And these are the kinds of things that potentially can happen.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.